Today is the third meeting of Blackpool's Disability Forum. We are going to be considering the work that we will do in the year ahead. We've got 3 cases to consider, and then it will be over to you about what we do with these 3 cases and how these cases fit into a work plan for the next 12 months. Okay, so can I invite Charlotte up here? Charlotte, Robbie was getting council transport to school until last June.
Yeah.
What happened last June that changed things?
Well, he's had it for 3 years, free transport, and it's always been an absolute help for me because I've got another son who goes to Leighton School, so I can't be in 2 places at once. Their dad has work at 6:30 in the morning, so it leaves me alone. So I can't be an octopus and go one place, go the other way. But the council decided to decline it. And they said it's outside of the scope of the policy why it was declined.
Okay.
But it doesn't specify
which policy. Okay, so just to be clear about that, Robbie was getting transport until last June because he was going to Park School, which is a special school, and because he has a condition, autism.
Autism and global development.
Right, so there was a reason why he was getting a lift to school, and this wasn't a taxi, was it? It was a minibus with other kids?
No, it was a minibus with other children, yeah.
Right, okay, and this stopped in June, and just got a letter, and it said, we're not doing this anymore for Robbie.
Yeah.
And it said it was because of a policy, but it didn't set out which policy.
Yeah.
Okay, now there'll be a chance for you to ask more questions of Charlotte in the end, but what did you then do when term started again in September? How did you manage that without a lift for Robbie and your other son and your husband at work?
Well,
how did that all work?
Robbie now does a breakfast club, which I have to be at the school for 8 o'clock, so Harry comes with me, and then I walk back with Harry to take him back to school.
Okay.
With a 14-minute period, that's both times.
Okay, so how do you get Robbie to school yourself?
Walking.
You're walking, and can he walk?
Robbie goes in his pushchair.
Okay, which is this pushchair
Yeah.
here? And you travel about 3 miles to school in
2.1 exactly with the walking distance.
Right.
It takes me up to 20 minutes-ish, depending on how busy the roads are. If it's not that busy, I can get across the road without pressing the traffic lights, hopefully.
A couple of things strike me. One, have the council done a risk assessment on this individual trying to get to and from school? He previously was entitled to it. The risk, he was in an enclosed vehicle, there's no risk. Having some experience of people with autism, they're not predictable. Crossing roads with a child with autism is not great. The second thing was, which you mentioned, and it'd be worth looking at, if they've gone from 15 transports to 9, there's been a policy decision made there to reduce the amount of transport available. So ask the council to see the equality analysis and the risk assessment behind that decision, because it doesn't seem sensible to me.
The policy doesn't seem to have been updated either. It's from 2018.
Right. So what Howard's saying is that could be something that we ask for as a group, the thinking behind that. There is also a little question about why individual parents are doing battle with the council about this, whereas before questions of transport would be referred to the school, as I understand it, and the school would say yes or no, and the council would just do what the school said. But now there seems to be, and I put this in the briefing note because I sense this, but it does need to be checked out by this group, that individual parents are being picked off almost, or being...
Yeah.
Low-hanging fruit, isn't it? An individual's not going to be able to have the resources behind them.
Stephanie from Envision.
I think it's what you said at the beginning, it's the understanding. Yeah. Because you've said about it doesn't like the sound of an ambulance, heavy goods vehicles. Now, to say that to anybody, they just think, oh, well, he might just not like it. But actually, if you're there with him, if they were there with him when the ambulance goes past and see how distressed he gets through it, I think that would probably make a massive difference. Yeah. And I think with everything, it is the understanding of what it does need. And, you know, they need to look at that. When they're sat around a table making these decisions, they need to know more about autism and other disabilities as well. And the flexibility as well. What is the difference? 0.1 of a mile. They need to take, as people have said, they need to take into account things like that.
It's a lot of council time, 9 council officers to argue about 0.1 of a mile.
And how much experience have they got?
Charlotte, I just wanted to check if I had understood properly. Were other families affected by the decision? And have they appealed in the way that you have?
Some have actually give up, the ones that I've spoken to, but
Yes,
Mr. Mooney have actually said to me that I seem to be the only one that have actually had my meeting.
One of our ladies that's in the group, Belle, she's a wheelchair user, has a van with a little lift at the back, and it lifts her in and she can drive the car. So this was broken. So in the meantime, while they're waiting for mobility to help them fix it, she's at the mercy of public transport and taxis. And we were made aware that if you need a taxi that is fit to have a big wheelchair into the taxi, they're having to call them from out of the area. And I think the cost, one of the costs of the taxis, it was costing mobility, because they were covering the cost, £110 just for the call out for the taxi to come out of the area. So why aren't there more wheelchair friendly taxis in the system? I said, is there something written down where it says each taxi firm needs to have a certain amount of taxis? And he said no. And for example, if somebody up at Fleetwood needs a wheelchair friendly taxi, there is 3 in Cleveland's, but the tariff, so when they get in the taxi, it starts at £25.
A lot of the black taxis, the bomber type taxis in Blackpool, I think they have wheelchair access because they have ramps on them, don't they?
They have the fold-down ramps.
So I would imagine there's quite a lot of those about in Blackpool. Thinking of other areas, Fleetwood and Cleveland's, I'm not really sure. But Blackpool Council do have a department that you could speak to them about taxis.
I've used black tax in the past but I still think there's a safety issue, because they put them into the back of the taxi, but they don't restrain them half of the time. So they are literally...
It's not locked in like this.
No.
I want to bring you case 3. It's the juiciest of all cases, but it started with this fine group of people, Blackpool Boccia. Aren't they lovely? Now, Blackpool Boccia, this team, travel all over winning games of boccia. Can they play at home? They can't. Why can't they? Because they don't have a court. So Colin, who allows me to give his age every time we present this case, 75, is it? Down, okay. Well, he's in. Oh, right, okay. Colin, who's a boccia dad, has to get on his hands and knees and mark out a court at Stanley Park Sports Centre so that they can at least practice at home. But they can never play at home and host games at home because they don't have a court. We took up this case not knowing where it would lead us, like pulling a thread on a jumper. We've ended up in a totally different room. We asked the council, could we have a court? And this is Colin taking his case to the Council for Leisure Services, Joe Farrell, and Laura Ivinson from Leisure Services, who's the officer there. And you can listen back to this on our podcast, Help I'm Disabled in Blackpool, because I am not joking when I say that the council just said, Colin, you'll have to carry on for another couple of years because, we just don't have the funds to mark out the court. Given what we've experienced about transport and about sporting facilities, are disabled people being listened to as these things are being planned and built? What residents wanted out of our new sporting facilities, we found out through the research we did, was they didn't just want football. And I'm sorry if you've heard this one before, but it just is worth saying again for people who've not heard this, that there are other sports apart from football, and football needs feet and legs, right? So listen, thank you everybody for coming today and exercising those little grey cells and also sharing your experience. Hopefully together we can make Blackpool a fairer place. Thank you very much.